All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger.
Okay.
And, it's a love story,
Right.
but not your typical romance.
Yeah, definitely not.
It's about Henry, a man with this rare genetic disorder
Yeah.
that makes him travel through time,
Mm-hmm.
and Claire, the woman who loves him.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's so fascinating about this book is that we get both Henry's and Claire's perspectives
Absolutely.
on this really unusual relationship, and it just makes for such a compelling read.
For sure. So we start off and we're introduced to both Henry and Claire in the prologue.
Right?
And they both kind of give us their initial descriptions of what it's like to live with Henry's time traveling.
And Henry's is really filled with fear. He's constantly being ripped out of his present and, thrust into another time without any warning.
Totally.
And he talks about the dangers of, having to steal to survive.
Right.
Encountering, hostile people, just never knowing when or if he's going to return.
Yeah. It's unpredictable and scary.
Exactly.
And then you have Claire's perspective, which is, completely different.
Right.
She's describing this agonizing wait.
Yeah.
Never knowing when Henry's going to disappear or reappear.
That's right. And she uses this really powerful analogy of like a sailor's wife constantly watching the horizon,
Oh, yeah.
hoping for her husband to return home safely. And I think that really captures the emotional weight that Claire carries throughout the entire story.
Totally.
Yeah.
Then we jump into chapter 1. And we're in 1991 at the Newberry Library in Chicago.
Yes.
And this is where Claire first meets Henry.
Right.
But it's not his first time meeting her.
Exactly.
She's actually known Henry for years because he's visited her throughout her childhood.
Yes, because of his time traveling.
Thanks to his time traveling.
Yeah.
But for Henry, this is their first encounter.
Right.
And he's totally bewildered when she's like, hey, I know about your time traveling thing.
Yeah, he's like, what is going on?
Yeah. It's such a unique twist on that classic meet cute.
Yep.
And they go on a date and things get a little awkward when Claire discovers lipstick at Henry's apartment.
Oh, yeah.
That isn't hers.
Right.
And, Henry assures her, oh, it's my ex-girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
which, given his time traveling is technically true.
Yeah, exactly.
But for Claire, it's just like another one of these complexities to their relationship.
Right. It adds another layer of difficulty.
For sure. Then in chapter 2, we start to delve into Henry's early experiences with time traveling through a series of flashbacks.
Yes.
Which is such a powerful way to kind of show how his condition has shaped his whole life.
Totally. And we see him as a 5-year-old encountering his older self for the first time at the Field Museum.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine being that young?
I can't even imagine.
And seeing your future self?
Right.
Like, that's a mind-blowing experience that really sets the stage for the rest of his life.
Totally. And then we also get this scene where a 36-year-old Henry finds himself in Claire's meadow.
Yes.
And meets 6-year-old Claire for the first time.
That's right.
And it's interesting how we get this juxtaposition of Henry's familiarity with her.
Right.
And Claire's just innocent fear and confusion.
Yes.
Like she's just a little girl.
Totally. And he just appears and disappears.
Yeah, and it's so crucial to their whole dynamic moving forward.
Exactly. Those early encounters really shape their understanding of each other.
Absolutely. And then in chapter 3, we see more of these visits from Henry's perspective.
Yeah.
And he even starts teaching his younger self essential survival skills like pickpocketing.
Because he often lands in these precarious situations.
Yeah, he's got no money, no resources, no idea where he is half the time.
And it makes you wonder if you could go back and teach your younger self something, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question.
But these flashbacks also show us a darker side to Henry's time traveling,
Yeah.
He's been in dangerous situations, witnessed violence.
Yeah.
And he's even had to deal with the trauma of watching his mother die in a car accident.
And not being able to do anything about it?
And he time travels away at the last moment.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
It is.
And then that experience is revisited in chapter 4 when Henry shares this painful memory with Claire on Christmas Eve.
Yes.
The anniversary of his mother's death.
It's such a moment of vulnerability.
Yes.
And intimacy for them.
Absolutely. He's letting her into the deepest parts of his life.
We really see him grappling with the guilt and the grief and the loneliness that comes with his condition.
It really solidifies their bond.
Right. It goes beyond the surface level complications of time travel.
Oh, yeah.
It shows us that they're connecting on a much deeper emotional level.
Absolutely.
And in chapter 5, we see, Claire's anxieties about their relationship start to come out.
Oh, yeah.
Her roommate's boyfriend is really suspicious of Henry.
Yeah.
And she even gets these warnings from other women about his past relationships.
Right. It's so interesting how even though it's this extraordinary situation, she still has to deal with these very real relationship anxieties.
Right.
It's like she knows they're meant to be together,
Exactly.
but she's still human.
Yeah, and then a future version of Henry even visits Claire.
Right.
And kind of reassures her that this present-day Henry is worth sticking with.
Yeah, he's like, he's going to grow up, he's going to be a good guy.
Right, exactly. And it just adds this whole other layer of complexity to their relationship.
For sure. Then chapter 6, we see Henry finally meeting Claire's family.
Yes, over Christmas.
Over Christmas.
Yeah.
And wow, what a dynamic.
And you can tell that their family dynamics are just as complicated as his relationship with time.
Totally. And then he goes to his own father to ask for his mother's rings so he can propose to Claire.
Right, and that scene with his father is so poignant.
Yeah. What's beautiful.
You see their strained relationship, but also Henry's just like determination to break free from the past and build this future with Claire.
That's really powerful.
It is, and his father ends up giving him the rings.
And then on Claire's 21st birthday, in chapter 7,
Henry proposes.
Yeah. And she says yes.
Of course.
But of course, nothing's ever easy.
Right.
So as the wedding day approaches, Henry becomes obsessed with trying to control his time traveling.
Because he doesn't want to disappear during the ceremony.
No, it's like, this is the one time I cannot disappear.
Exactly.
And it's kind of comical how much effort he puts into it.
It is.
But it just highlights, you know, the fear and the anxiety that he has about his condition.
Totally.
But of course, he ends up time traveling during the ceremony.
But a future version of him steps in and takes his place.
It's so sweet. It's such a testament to their love.
It is.
And then in chapter 8, we see their married life.
Yeah, and it's this whirlwind of like happiness and frustration.
Yeah.
You know, we see them building this life together.
Right.
But there's still the challenges of Henry's unpredictable disappearances.
Yeah, and he's constantly in danger.
Exactly.
And Claire's, you know, a talented artist. Right. But she's struggling to find the space to be creative in their little apartment.
Yeah.
Which leads us to chapter 9, where Henry, knowing the winning lottery numbers from his time travels,
decides to play. And of course wins.
Big surprise.
Right. And it's definitely a controversial decision.
Yeah.
Like some people might say it diminishes the struggle that they faced.
Right.
But I also think it speaks to his desire to create this stable and comfortable life for Claire.
Of course. He wants her to be able to pursue her passion.
Exactly.
So they buy a house with a studio for her.
Right.
But then
their happiness is short-lived.
Short-lived because Henry's time-traveling episodes get worse.
They get more frequent. He's getting injured more often.
So in chapter 10, they decide to go see Dr. Kendrick.
Yeah, this geneticist. Who a future version of Henry had told them about.
Yes. Who could maybe help with his condition.
Exactly. It's like this mix of science fiction and the reality of their relationship.
Totally. So they convinced Dr. Kendrick
that time travel is real.
Yes. And he starts studying Henry's genes.
Hoping to find a cure or at least some way to control it.
So there's hope.
There is a glimmer of hope.
But then in chapter 11,
tragedy strikes
again.
They experience multiple miscarriages.
Which is just another layer of grief.
Yes, on top of everything else.
And then Claire's mother passes away.
Right. It's just a brutal reminder that even with time travel, they can't escape the pain and loss.
Of life. Then in chapter 12, we see Claire still wanting to have a child.
Right.
But Henry makes this decision without even talking to her.
Yes, he gets a vasectomy. Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to risk any more heartbreak.
And he's worried about the complications with his time traveling.
Right. It's a tough choice.
It is, and it highlights their communication struggles.
Totally. But then
Claire gets pregnant. By a past version of Henry.
Oh.
Who hadn't had the vasectomy yet.
What a twist.
Right. Only in a story like this.
Only in this story.
Exactly.
And they named their daughter Alba.
Which means white.
Meaning white.
Yeah, symbolizing new beginnings.
But then Henry finds out he's going to die when Alba is 5.
Yeah, from his time travel.
From his time-traveling knowledge.
Yeah.
Can you imagine having that knowledge?
It's heartbreaking.
That your time is limited.
Especially with your child.
And it makes you think, like, would you want to know when you're going to die?
Yeah, it's a big question.
How would that affect your choices in your relationship?
Exactly. And those are the kinds of questions that Niffenegger wants us to consider.
Totally.
And then in chapter 13, Alba is born, you know, healthy and beautiful, and we see Claire actually finding a silver lining in Henry's time-traveling absences.
Oh, how so?
Well, she's able to really bond with Alba and focus on her art while he's away.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's definitely a bittersweet situation. But it allows her to embrace those moments of, peaceful normalcy.
Right. But then in chapter 14, Alba, who has also inherited her father's time-traveling ability,
Right.
visits them from the future.
And Claire was... Like, there's this deep sadness in future Alba's reaction to Henry.
Oh, wow.
And it really foreshadows, Henry's death.
Yeah, and it mirrors those early visits from Henry to a young Clare.
Exactly. It's this heartbreaking echo across time.
Right, and Claire's intuition is right on because when she confronts Henry,
he confesses.
I finally tells her that he knows he's going to die.
Yes.
And for Claire, this triggers a memory.
From her childhood.
Yeah, from that hunting trip with her father and brother.
Right. She remembers waking up to someone calling her name.
Oh, wow.
And she believes that's when and where Henry will die.
Oh, that's chilling.
It is. And meanwhile, Dr. Kendrick confirms that Henry's condition is too advanced for any kind of treatment.
No.
But he agrees to continue his research focusing on Alba.
So there's still a little bit of hope.
There's hope for the next generation.
Yeah.
Then in chapter 15, just a few months later, Henry has this really terrible time-traveling episode that results in him losing both of his feet.
Oh, wow.
You can imagine the physical and emotional toll that takes on him.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
He falls into this deep depression.
Yeah.
He barely leaves his bed.
And then Claire creates these amazing red and black wings for him.
Yes, out of paper.
What a powerful symbol.
Right, like flight and transcendence and overcoming limitations.
So beautiful.
It's incredibly moving, and when Henry sees them, it's like something shifts within him.
Oh, wow.
He breaks free from that despair and starts to cope.
But losing his feet also has another implication.
Right, it means he can't run from danger anymore.
During his time travels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He knows his death is getting closer.
Oh, no.
So in chapter 16, they decide to throw this New Year's Eve party.
Oh, wow.
Inviting all their friends and family.
Yeah.
It's a celebration of their life together. A testament to the love that they've built despite all the chaos.
Right. And then Henry slips away, telling Claire that his time has come.
And they share this final intimate moment.
Oh, wow.
Before he vanishes.
And when he reappears.
He's been shot.
He's been shot.
Fatally wounded.
It's so sad, but it feels like it was always coming.
Right. It felt inevitable.
Yeah. And he dies surrounded by loved ones.
Yeah. His life is just this testament to the power of love.
And in the aftermath, Claire finds this letter that Henry wrote to her before he died.
It's full of love and gratitude.
Yeah.
An encouragement for her to embrace the present.
That's so beautiful.
And he tells her that he knows a past version of him will visit her one last time when she's very old.
Oh, wow.
And then we jump forward to a 43-year-old Henry lost in time, and he encounters this elderly woman.
It's Claire.
It's Claire. And as they reach for each other, the story shifts back to Claire's perspective just moments before this meeting.
She's been waiting all these years.
For Henry's final visit.
It's such a bittersweet ending.
It really makes you think about time and memory and the enduring power of love.
The Time Traveler's Wife is a story that just stays with you.
Right. It makes you think about the choices we make and the moments that define us.
Yeah, and the legacy we leave behind.
It really does. So could you love someone knowing their time with you is limited? That's something for you all to think about as we finish up this deep dive into Audrey Niffenegger's captivating world.